So it looks like Elon Musk is going through with his deal to buy Twitter, and he's been going back and forth on this issue for a while now. That's because he didn't really take into account bots that much when he made the original deal, and this is a major oversight for him considering that the company is nowhere near the purchasing price of $44 billion. But he was likely to lose his court battle with Twitter anyways for trying to pull out of the deal to begin with, and he does have high ambitions for enabling more free speech on the internet. So it looks like he sees this as either worth the loss or a much longer term investment. Regardless, if Elon wants to turn Twitter into a free speech platform, there are some major hurdles he's going to have to face. First is the employees. Contrary to popular opinion, Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, was actually fairly free speech by Silicon Valley standards. But he ran into the problem that, number one, he didn't really own that much of the company, so he didn't have that much of a say, and number two, his employees were constantly pressuring him to allow them to censor people they didn't like. Elon's already solving the first of these problems by buying the company, but the existing employees will remain a problem if they stay. Luckily, many of the anti-free speech people at Twitter have left the company or are planning to do so if and when Elon takes charge, so part of the problem is solving itself. However, he'll likely have to audit the remaining employees to make sure they won't rebel against him at a critical moment later on down the line. He may also move the company's headquarters out of San Francisco to a less activistic area to get a more cooperative pool of candidates to choose from. He's already hinted that such changes will have to be made, so it looks like he's on the right track on this challenge. The second major hurdle is web hosting, and this will be a little more difficult to deal with. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google make up 65% of all cloud infrastructure, and they have made it policy to kick off anyone from their service that disagrees with them politically. This is a big problem for Elon considering that Twitter currently relies on Amazon's web hosting services, albeit in part as they do have their own servers. But if Elon refuses to censor people that Amazon doesn't like, they can just pull their service and cause major disruptions and slowdowns on the site. He'll probably have to play ball with these companies until he could build up more server infrastructure himself. However, this will take time and significant resources, and he just dropped $44 billion on this acquisition, so even further investment would be painful in the short term. Perhaps he can strike a deal with some smaller, lesser-known companies in this space as a stopgap. But even Elon has his limits. He won't be willing to associate with people who host extreme content or people on their service. And then there's others who masquerade as free speech platforms but have recently been revealed to be explicitly against it. Nearly free speech, for example, is the first search result when looking for a free speech web hosting service. But they claim here that freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Of course, this isn't an actual argument, it's just agitprop nonsense, because they know full well that if you incur costs from something, that means that thing isn't free. By definition. They're also incredibly racist against white people, so yeah, don't use their service. They hate you more than Amazon does. The point is, there's pretty much no free speech web hosting services that don't keep unpleasant company, meaning a free speech Twitter may have to wait for more server infrastructure, which will likely take several years at the very least. Perhaps the biggest problem Elon will have to face is keeping Twitter on the app stores. Both Google and Apple require you to censor people they don't like to appear on their stores. This was evident when Parler, a free speech Twitter clone, was kicked off of their stores for a lack of moderation mechanisms. But now that the company scans for hate speech, they're allowed back on their stores. Of course, this doesn't actually matter since the only reason people used their platform is because they tried to be free speech, but now that they are not, there's no reason for them to exist. It's hard to see how Elon can resolve this issue as Google and Apple are a literal duopoly here. There are no other app stores on your phones that can be used as an alternative. Elon could theoretically make a whole nother Android variant, but you're asking a little much at that point. At the end of the day, it's just too much for one guy to do all of these different things. He could go to court if they try to pull the app, arguing that they're a monopoly, but Google will likely point to Android's open source nature as a defense. You also can technically get apps that aren't in the App Store, but not in a mass marketable way. Just telling your iPhone users to jailbreak their phones to use Twitter isn't a viable business strategy. Sideloading apps is also fairly obscure, so you can't rely on that for Android devices either. It's difficult to see how Elon gets past this obstacle. Maybe other billionaires like Peter Thiel can make a new operating system for the phone, or perhaps government legislatures pass anti-monopoly regulations that require other app stores to be available on smartphones. But all of this will take time if they even happen at all. So in the immediate term, I see Elon just going along with doing the bare minimum to stay on these stores. It would still be incredibly censorious, but it would likely be a little better than the current state of the app. Finally, it seems like Elon has high ambitions for Twitter, saying he wants to make it a part of, or turn it into, the Everything app. What he's likely referring to here is having video, text, and streaming capabilities, both short form and long form, while also having its own payment processor and search engine. This is somewhat similar to Tencent's WeChat, but the Chinese government found that it was a vertical monopoly, and thus required them to enable links to their competitors' sites. This isn't that big of a blow to their business, and it does allow for more competition. However, Tencent is essentially a wing of the government over there, whereas Elon Musk will have to deal with politically hostile governments in America and the European Union. So I wouldn't be surprised if regulators try to use this as an opportunity to break up his business to allow them to censor people again. He'll have to be careful not to go too far, so maybe these can be separate businesses that work together instead. Regardless, it's good to see someone with his resources understand the need for parallel economies. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure a lot of this is about the money he will make along the way, but even a mild improvement in the free speech arena will be beneficial to online discourse. Let's just hope he can maneuver this minefield to optimize the outcomes so he can deliver on his vision. What do you think about the potential of a free speech Twitter? Or X, as Elon Musk puts it. Do you think it's likely or even possible? Do you think the Everything app will work or be declared a monopoly? And what would you do if you were in Elon's position? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching and have a nice day.